Sibilance. 1, 2, 3. Oh, okay. Hello, everyone. Yeah, as usual, new BP. Don't know when this is going to come out, but it'll probably come out in a couple of months. We're just doing a bunch of backlog stuff because we have time to record stuff. Seeing that there's no more rainstorms or landslides happening in Hong Kong, might as well make the best of it because we have no idea when the next landslide is going to hit Hong Kong. You know right there, Jason?
I am doing all right.
So, I've been commandeering the topic discussion for a lot of BPs recently. So I think the turns have tabled, and it's now on your side to essentially introduce the topic.
Right, because the turns of the table.
Yeah.
Tables have turned.
Yes.
Got it. Well, let's talk about beginnings and ends.
Are we actually doing an episode on OPs and EDs?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
Psych.
Oh, damn. All right. I would have been down for that, but sure. Okay.
I mean, okay. So about OPs and EDs, I don't skip them. I love them. Will it's on a case by case basis. I respect that.
I have not skipped a single opening for Skip and Loafer because that song is so good and the opening is so bubbly.
The dance sequence is good.
It's so bubbly, yeah.
Hey, did you watch What's a Koi?
No.
Okay,
No.
Their opening sequence is also very good. Okay, but this is not about OPs and EDs. But the issue with OPs and EDs is because it's auditory and also of copyright issues, so we can't do that. So, but this is not about OPs and EDs, but it is about beginnings and endings because I'm not talking about an ending of an anime per se or an ending of a manga per se. I'm actually talking about the fragmented beginnings and endings of anime in general. So, what this means is we go anime as per usual goes in a 4-season rotation every year. Also, let's take into consideration that anime, even though it has changed ever so slightly in terms of its purpose, originated as a way to promote their products, right? Whether it is the source of the light novel or the manga or whatever, or a multimedia project.
So selling Beyblades and yo-yos and whatnot.
Or Gundams, all of the above, right? But let's talk about ending occur or beginning occur of anime and or ending a series that has the source ending. All of the above, essentially, is what I would like to talk about today.
This is a very heavy loaded topic, but I'm ready for it. Yeah? Okay.
So let's start by talking about how occur ends. Traditionally being either 12 to 14 episodes, right? I think anime watchers have the unfortunate anxiety where sometimes, more often than not, actually it's not sometimes, most of the time, when an anime ends, it just ends rather than it being conclusive. I think when we talk about a lot of shows on the podcast...
You mean specifically those seasons, right? Those curves, or do you mean like a series as a whole? Like specific curves?
Actually, both, but let's talk about curves first, right? So, because generally there's always this notion for a lot of anime watchers, and even us as well, be like, oh, they'll never make a season 2. Or there probably will be a season 2, but we don't know when, right? Things like Ancient Magus' Bride, where the source has enough to go off of, but it took forever for season 2 to be announced and then arrived. On the other hand, you will get, Land of the Illustrious at that time did not have a lot of source. I mean, there's infinitely a lot of series where the source catches up and then they don't have any more source material to adapt, so then they have to wait, essentially. So they know...
Hence why you have, filler arcs and whatnot, yeah.
Or, hey, we can only adapt up to this point because we don't have any source material, so we have to wait, 2 years for the mangaka or the writer of the light novel to be able to adapt it, right? I think Beastars is one, for example.
Or it's from the get-go, it's most of the time you just get one season, right? You just get one season.
One and done, yeah.
And then most of the time, studios are pretty realistic with it and be like, okay, we'll just write an ending for that, or we'll end it at a specific end of an arc in the manga, and then that'll be it.
Yep.
And then like whatever else happens, yeah, you just gotta go watch. Just gotta go and read the manga.
Because very rarely, unless if it's a shonen or One Piece, which is also a shonen, do you get a long spanning series that adapts everything. I mean, even Bleach right now is only getting the finale of the whole series now, right?
After like 10, 15 years, yeah.
Yep. Or you get a lot of, I guess, like limited.
Speaking
curves,
of
right?
like something that's come out like after a long time, did you see that Fist of the North Star is getting a new anime series?
I'm grinning right now because like
40 years.
that's insane. Yeah, exactly. Like, many ways it is due to the fact that a lot of people now are into anime. That such projects like Fist of the North Star, that I would say, even though is like a classic, it's kind of a hard sell nowadays, right?
It's like, how are you going to recommend someone like, oh, you should totally watch this series from the 80s? It's like, it's not quite the same as watching like a movie from like the 80s or the 90s. It doesn't have that kind of grandiose nature to it. Like, this is not to like knock on Fist of the North Star, but like, yes, it sold like 40 million copies of manga back in the day, but if you were to think about how many sales it has now, it's not comparable. So it's interesting to see they actually brought it back.
Right. And I think a lot of series, like when they end their Cour, they end on a, okay, it's like a, we're back to the beginning, but everyone has grown or changed, or it's sort of like, here we go again.
There's so many series I want to mention that have this specific issue, but if I mention them, they're fucking spoilers.
Right. Or I mean, but I think that kind of motif, right, that trope of
Actually,
it's not
no,
really an ending.
Actually, no, there is one I can mention because it's been out for a long goddamn time, and I'm just going to say it anyway.
Sure.
Dorohedoro. The way that season one, or not even
I don't
season
even
one,
remember how it ended.
they ended.
Were they eating dumplings?
No, they ended. Okay, you remember the guy with the heart mask? No, not the heart mask. The mushroom guy. They're at his palace.
Big boy.
Yeah,
Big
and
boss.
and then the two main characters, right? The lizard guy and the girl,
Skateboard girl.
are fighting, and then it kind of just ends right there.
Mm.
So the way that it ended like that, you would expect
It's like an
there's-
abrupt, right?
You would expect that there's going to be a season 2 to follow up. Yet, like 5 years later, there's still no mention of anything.
Oh no, there is. Just read the manga. I mean, that's really it.
Yeah, that's what I had to do.
Oh, you got like some specials, I
those
guess.
6 episodes of them just walking around eating dumplings. That's it.
I mean, dumplings are great though.
They look great in the movie, in the anime for sure, in the manga. Yeah.
Die dark, die dark, die dark. Okay, okay.
One
okay.
day.
Okay. But I understand the logistics, that whether it is due to the habit of animes being a promotional material at its core, and it's also not a shonen product where there is something to sell as a merchandise like a toy or Gundam, right? It just ends, and then despite people clamoring for it, or a lot of cases we're just like content, we're like, okay, rarely do we get Mashle being announced off the get-go as a complete anime adaptation. Like you put your balls or your dick on the table and be like, we're fucking doing it.
And to just
or
similar,
Shield Hero.
Yeah, exactly, with the 2 seasons announced back to back.
I mean, usually it's like, let's do a wait and see approach. That is generally for, I mean, even I would argue like the
Live
way
action
to
does
do
the
it.
same thing too.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's very weird for series to be like, oh, you know what? We're doing every single thing you guys do, even if it makes us lose money. Like
What do you mean by every single thing?
As in like every single episode in completion to the source, right? So
like deviations?
Yeah. So basically it's like you have a whole like 24 volumes of manga. We're going to adapt all 24 volumes of manga right from the get-go, like what they're doing with Mashle, right?
Right.
It's not 24 volumes, but you know what I mean.
I understand, right?
Like nobody does that because it's such a huge risk to put your balls on the table like that.
Yeah, we know Demon Slayer is going to be adapted fully. You and I know that. Everyone knows that.
But they've had like tangible evidence to show, right? Like,
And not just that, they don't just announce it from the get-go. It's just assumed based
just
on the
know.
performance, and we
Yeah.
just know. And then, obviously over the years, the next one, and the next one. Usually, they announce at the end of the finale, as like a teaser or an announcement as a wrap up. Be like, oh, by the way, season whatever is coming, yo.
Yeah,
That kind of thing.
or they'll do the Avengers thing at the end where it'll be like Kirito will return for SAO. I was like, oh, okay, then we know it's gonna come back.
Yeah, but sometimes for like whether it is lesser shows or shows that we don't know if they will get a second season, or they just either end abruptly or they just end in this trope like, oh, cyclic effect, that I feel that is in many ways like, because if we compare to like live action, right, like, take any given live action show of any genre, generally live action has a way to wrap things up in a somewhat satisfying way. Either that or there's a cliffhanger ending, right? Of course, anime gets cliffhanger endings, but I think, maybe I'm biased, but I think anime has an extra larger problem. Issue.
And that kind of actually bleeds into a topic that I wanted to talk about, but I'm happy to sort of
let's
merge it into here.
Let's begin this journey, bro. Let's do all of it. Fuck it.
Do you think that there's just too many anime series that come out per season?
Oh, I did not expect you to ask me that question. Okay, that might actually be like a different.
But I'm happy to merge it in here because I think there is some correlation to what's because
how so?
Every season we get like anywhere between 50 to 70 anime series. But if you think about like the live action like cycle, right? There's not that many series that come out every fucking month, every 3 months and so. Yes, you do get like exclusives that come out.
But you also get like season, like you get like, rather than a fixed season, like, oh, this is the fall season lineup.
Yeah.
You do get a seasonal lineup, and it is week by week, obviously, but it is not as like a cornerstone of the medium. You know what I mean?
But what I'm saying here then is like every year we get at least 200 new series to not
So
always
it's like
new.
oversaturation.
It's not so much oversaturation. It's more just the fact that like with because a lot of the series we talk about, like, they come out per season. Most of the time, they all fall under one or two different umbrellas, and by that, it's like a specific publication company, a specific licensing agency, a specific production company, and so therefore, it's like when you have like 50 different products coming out per year. How is it that you're going to guarantee that every single one of them is going to be a hit and you can continuously make stuff? So it's like
you don't.
Exactly.
That's
so that's why I think it's like when you have a series that comes out, it's been greenlit for a one-cur adaptation. You as a director or you as like the production team are kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. Do you play the safe approach and just say, look, we got one season, let's just do what we can, what we got, and then wrap it up in the final episode and see what happens? Or do you go balls to the wall and say, no, we know this is going to be successful. We're going to make it so that by the time season 1 ends, that there's going to be a continuation to season 2. Because there are series that do that and unfortunately lay dormant, right? Like Blue Exorcist had 2 seasons and it ended in a way that there was going to be more stuff. Nothing ever came out. Right? Same thing with Dorohedoro.
Isn't Blue Exorcist coming back?
It's coming back, but it took a long time. But that's the wait between like season 2 and season 3 or whatever season they're on now. Like it's been so long that you've been cliffhung for so long, right? And I think
and then you forgot about it.
Yeah. So I think it just comes down to a couple things. It's never just one specific thing that is like the root of all problems, right?
Wait, what was the hiatus between the AOT 1 and 2?
Like 6 years? Like 2012 to 2018.
And that's a big thing, right? I mean, even Promised Neverland, right? The anime original content, you had stuff to adapt. Like it was all, I think at that point it was all done.
Yeah.
Right? Haikyuu also, like going off of like shonen properties, Haikyuu is done. Like the manga series is done. But it took forever to get season 4, or what they call it, Haikyuu, to the top.
To the top, yeah.
And so I totally get it. But I also think that where season 3 ended was also very apt.
Yes.
Such that if that was all we got, it would suck, but I would be okay with it because they wrapped the adaptation up in such a way that it was acceptable. And when I mean by acceptable, I don't mean like a hoity-toity, like snot, like you know what I mean, like uppity type person. I mean it as like it was a conclusive beginning, middle, and end. You could have a cliffhanger ending, you could have a tease, but at least like it was like a complete thing.
Yeah. And I think like with why there's like so many anime series that come out per season, it does make it difficult to make a decision on how you end that specific cour or that specific season of anime. You have to make the decision from the beginning, because if you don't have it in pre-production, it's going to be difficult for you to actually plan and produce the shit, right? So you just have to know by the end of episode 12 or 13 or however long your cour is going to be, you got to make a decision. Are we going to make it so that it ends right there and then see what happens if we do get a second like season? Or do we just make it so that there is room for a second season, but it's going to really suck if we don't get it, you know?
Yeah. And this is a recent phenomenon that I'm about to mention, or at least I see it more prevalent nowadays, which is the split cour.
Yeah.
I mean, we even people use it, that system or that phrase now.
We talked about this when we were talking about Spy Family when it first came out, and how like the first cour came out, and it was like, dude, it was riding to momentum. It went from like an 8.2 to 8.5, 8.7, 9 point fucking whatever, and then when the final episode of the first cour came out, and it ended. The score
ended in the aquarium.
Yeah,
which is like, why would you end that? It was like
the score plummeted.
Especially the episode before that, they teased the last member of the family, and then they didn't mention it at all.
And you and I, when we saw the episode, we were like, holy fuck, they're going to actually introduce that character.
Exactly.
I can't fuck. And then when we found out what the fuck was going on in episode 12. Yeah, I think they lost like 0.3, 0.4 points on my anime list.
A lot of people were angry. And yes, there is going to be like another cour, like part 2 of season 1, like the next like they jump one season so everyone can rest or do, which is important, right? But along that lines, it's like choosing, because the aquarium, like they go to an aquarium that is in the manga. They're technically adapting it faithfully, right?
Yes.
And they do it justice for that like mini arc, but they made a very conscious decision, knowing full well there will be a part 2, to have this part 1 end on the aquarium visit.
Do you think it's arrogance, or do you think it's like poor planning, or neither of those?
I don't know, to be honest, but it was, to me, it was like, okay. I mean, I was like trying to like rationalize it, right? Like, okay, I know you're adapting that, so you want to be faithful. You know that it's a split cour, yet you may not have announced it yet. I mean, we're talking about any given, split cour thing,
but
right?
Anybody on the inside would know this thing is going to continue to be adapted. We know that Spy Family is super popular, so it doesn't really matter how we end it. People are going to watch it anyway.
They know they're going to do a part 2 of season 1. They knew that already, like from the get-go. But the fact that then why would you put... If I would be like, put that as like a special to like hold people over, so then they don't forget that.
It actually would have worked great as a special,
especially when the ending where they do the tease, that cliffhanger ending was such a good cliffhanger ending, right? Like it was enough because it wrapped up everything beforehand, and it gave you be like, oh, what the fuck was that? I mean, we knew because we read the manga, but it was just like
the aquarium episode gave us blue balls.
That's why it was so like perplexing to me. But you chose to end it midway at that point.
Yeah.
When it is, I don't think it's a logistic thing. I don't think, like, I just don't understand.
It was just poor planning. I think what they could have done was just stretch out a couple episodes in the first cour to make it so that they ended on that particular cliffhanger.
Maybe it's a deal that you have to produce this much.
I get it. No, it's because if they license you to produce 12 episodes, you better damn well produce 12 episodes. And so therefore it's like, okay, well, we got to figure out the pacing of this. We need to figure out what needs to be shown in the first season. What do we need to cut? What we need to add and all that. And so I think it was a decision that was made by the business as opposed to like from a creative and productive perspective.
Then what about Promised Neverland season 2?
That one I think is
Because
So that's not so much when it comes to like the beginning or ending of an anime series, because the way that season 1 ended was beautiful, and I think that if that was all we got for Promised Neverland, I would have been fine-ish with it. It doesn't really show like the actual story as to what happens after Promised Neverland,
yeah, but it's kind
you
of
know,
like its own like mini story or mini arc,
exactly.
right? Like, it made
And
sense
it
from
was
beginning
so
to end.
good. So what led to them deciding that anime original content for season 2 of Promised Neverland was the right thing to do? I think that was perplexing, very surprising, and unfortunately, in the end, a bad decision, because now we're not going to see any more Promised Neverland until they give it to a new studio. I think they have to give it to a new studio now. Well, we mentioned in the last episode too. It's like this is probably the only way that they're going to be able to get something out of Promised Neverland, and it's to change studios, because Cloverworks cannot keep doing this.
Fuck, I wanted to mention for our anime streaming platform, I had a problem with Horimiya because Horimiya, the missing piece, is like a continuation of Horimiya, but then in the way that it's structured, it is not a season, like it's sequel. I don't like. Oh my god. Anyways,
Do you ever like think maybe I'll just watch original Horimiya, and then like once that specific episode ends, then I flip over to the missing pieces and then
well, you
watch that?
can't because when
It's-
they
it's
jump
ha-
back
yeah.
and forth,
How, right? How do you do that?
But to be fair, right? That is because the manga. Okay, so I'm not going to spoil what happens in Horimiya or Horimiya the Missing Pieces, but I will tell you, which I guess some people would consider a spoiler, the structure of it, right? So they condense all the major quote unquote like life events or plot beats in the original Horimiya series. All the big events, such that if you just watch Horimiya, it's a complete story, albeit rushed, right? The manga is obviously way more volumes of content, and a lot of it has been filled with more slice of life comedic or character like vignettes that are actually very complimentary, but they're kind of whatever in terms of comparatively to like the major milestone events, right? That's why I think Horimiya piece, when I first heard it, I was hesitant, and even you were too. When even you picked it for your seasonal bet, you were just like, I'm not sure.
Because this could be Treasure Chest of Courage, right?
Exactly. We talked about that too. But in their case, that was like one of the few instances where I can say, as someone who does anime adaptation with a source, usually we like to kind of like shit on anime adaptations where it's like from character design perspective or the whole adaptation process, because it's just like, then follow the source. You have it all laid out for you.
Is Horimiya a slice of life or a romance?
I mean, it's both,
Or
really.
it's both. Okay, it's both.
But-
So
but I would say
so that's why I think Missing Pieces did work then, because when you're watching extra episodes of a slice of life, it just continues that mood. Whereas like with Treasure Chest of Courage, it was such a big departure from the overall tone of Ranking of Kings that maybe that was what was jarring for most people. It certainly was for me.
I think it was really smart in retrospection, where Horimiya piece, especially when you have so much like slice of life or like vignettes here, like in this like manga that you have left to adapt, but the pieces that you have chosen and how you like show that it is in this section because this person's hair or there's a certain life event, like it was very easy as an observer visually to be like, this is during this part, this is during that part. And it was one of the few instances where I thought the adaptation process was extremely well done comparatively, for example, to Treasure Chest of Courage.
Right. So you mentioned like in terms of like the topic you brought up, right? The beginning of and ending of anime, whether it be a singular episode occur or like a whole season or even like a whole series in general. We talked a lot about how series end, whether it be at the end of a cur or the end of a series. Do you have any sort of gripes or anything to talk about in terms of how series begin?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the first thing I would mention is it used to be we take episode counts for granted, right? In the Cour system, it is very much established that rarely do people have a vernacular that is used to represent a set of episodes and almost have it be a rule.
Like, you know that if you're going to get an anime season or something to watch, it's going to be 12 episodes.
At least
11 to 13.
Yeah. Like somewhere within that ballpark, right?
Other series, it's like we might have 8 episodes, we might have 16 episodes, we have 10 episodes. You never know. But with anime, it's almost consistent that if there's a Cour, it's going to be 11 to 13 episodes.
Yeah, and with a lot of the, I guess, the more like TV network broadcasts, like things like Game of Thrones, things like Walking Dead, obviously a lot of Netflix original shows of live action, the episode count is not fixed. There's no of course, anime doesn't necessarily have to follow that rule, but it is very more, almost, I would say, like 95% of anime.
99 even.
Yeah.
I think, like,
and especially if you
almost every single anime that comes out in a Cour format, you can guarantee it'll.
I mean,
that's how it's going to be done. Yeah.
I mean, the fact that you even say in a Cour format, because that's just standard practice.
Because if it's not, then it's an ONA or an OVA or it's a special.
Yeah, exactly.
Or short, right? Like, you might have like you can't
like
even
a 4-episode special.
You can't even say a Cour of Fooly Cooly because there's only 6 episodes.
Yeah, I will never say that.
Right? Yeah,
I would say season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like, season does not equal Cour and does not equal season.
Right, especially nowadays, right? Because let's take the statement that we were talking about before we started recording today. What is Attack on Titan called again?
Yeah, Attack on Titan, the final season, Part 3, Part 2. Naming conventions are out the window now because they decided that we are totally going to be finishing this in one go. So we're going to call this the final season, Part 3, the final chapters or something like that. And they didn't finish it, so now they have to do a Part 2. And it's just...
And to me, that is so dumb because... you're gonna finish the adaptation. We know you will, unless if something really fucking happens on the production side or whatever, right? But
I think Devil's a Part-Timer also did the same thing too. Let me pull it.
No, it's called Sequel or something.
Let me pull it up.
It's like, but with Attack on Titan, what I don't get is when you call something the final season, and I would even accept final season Part 1, Part 2, whatever, right? I don't like that naming convention, especially when you call something the final season. But we have a lot of friends and family who love Attack on Titan that know that some of them even know that the manga series has ended. But then when they heard that final season was announced, and then they get to the end of, I guess, the first part of the final season, they were like, what the fuck is this?
Okay, so the Devil's a Part-Timer slightly different because, it's like working, where it's like working, 1 exclamation mark, working, 2 exclamation marks.
For season 2.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they did the same thing for Devil's a Part-Timer. Season 1 was Devil's a Part-Timer. It would be in Japanese, Hataraku Mao-sama, right? 1 exclamation mark. The second season was same thing with 2 exclamation marks. But the English name is Devil's a Part-Timer Season 2. So then when they did Hataraku Mao-sama 2 exclamation marks second season, the English name was The Devil's a Part-Timer Season 2 Sequel. Because they messed up the naming conventions.
Right.
You clearly had the extra exclamation mark. You might as well use it. But I do get that it can be very confusing because it seems to be something that's a little bit more normal in Japanese naming conventions. At least from what we see.
And then lost in translation.
Yeah.
Right? But you can't mess up the final season. Like the name, right?
Yeah.
You know you're going to adapt it. I mean, I don't know if MAPPA must know, right? They have to know. And the other thing is, the average person, for better or for worse, does not follow anime on a day-to-day basis where they know things like Uncle Isekai is not canceled or that's actually not the finale. It's just COVID delays. But this is even worse because you don't really have COVID as an excuse. You just decided for no reason to call it the final season, but then it's actually like 15 Cours. You know, I mean, it's not 15 Cours, but you know what I mean. It's like,
oh, it's a lot of anime for sure.
Yeah. So it's like, we know how are you going to adapt all that with the manga when they first switched hands to MAPPA, right? And they called it the final season. We were like, how the fuck are you going to do that?
Yeah, because they were only halfway through the fucking manga series.
Right. I'm like, and then we thought at that time that it would be a continuous run, and then obviously it's not, and then now it's like it's like subsections of a subsection. It's like, what the hell are you doing? Just don't call it the final season.
Or actually, what we thought maybe was just they would just do like a double cur, maybe split,
or even
and then run a movie,
or like final season, like part 1, which is double cur, and then part 2, which is a double cur. Like even that is acceptable to me if we use the split cur system. But even though we went off a tangent, let's talk about beginnings, because we made that same mistake with, being kind of devoted to the cur system when we heard of Oshinoko. So we both read Oshinoko. We both loved it. I like the anime more, I guess, than you do. But I think you would still really appreciate
I like
the
it.
anime.
I like it a lot,
exactly. When we first heard that it was by Doga Kobo, we're like, oh, it's kind of odd pick, but sure. I mean, they made a lot of decent shows. They should be okay. Then we saw the episode count, and it was 11 episodes, and we freaked the fuck out because we were like, okay, if you adapt this much in an episode on average, how the fuck are you going to, we were like trying to like mind game. Like,
and then they shocked the whole world by saying, we're just going to be fitting one whole volume of manga into one episode. How the fuck you do that? Oh, we're going to do that by doing a 2-hour premiere.
90.
90? Okay, 90 minutes.
Fieren is 2 hours.
Yeah. So that's going to be the new trend, right?
So it's like, oh, technically it's within a cur of anime, except one episode is only like 90 minutes and everything else is standard. So it's like, why are we so fixated on this cur system that we have to begin and end it in a cur, but then the duration is not?
There's also the Mugen Train thing too, right? You have the movie, but then you also have like the 6 episodes that was adapted from the movie. So it's like, is that season 1 or season 2 and whatnot? And
because and they were slightly smart about it because now they call it like Entertainment District arc. So they don't call it season 1 or 2 or 3.
They go by the arcs along the manga, which actually does broach
smart.
It's smart, but it does just broach the question of, are they able to do it consistently? Because from what I've read online, some of the future arcs they have are extremely short. So how is it going to be like? Are they going to name it that specific arc, or are they going to have a different naming convention for it or whatnot?
So having read the whole manga, I can give you more insight on it, which is you're right.
Yeah.
Because essentially there is a final battle, right?
Yeah.
A final showdown. The problem with that is not the fact that there is one. The problem is the final showdown is like the One Piece thing of like, this is the last part, but there's like 5. There's like the last arc, but there's like 5 arcs, and each arc is like 50 episodes. You know what I mean? Right?
Yeah, exactly. There's always like a One Piece or like a Bleach episode where it's like there's a massive fight going on, but it takes place in 5 different places.
Yeah.
But it's all in the same timeline. So one episode, like episode 16, that fight is happening at the same time as episode 17 and 18 and so on and so forth.
Yeah, so it is in these types of situations where I really appreciate the anime adaptation process, and I value how well you adapt it, right? It's like these types of scenarios where trying to jigger, like, because when you read a manga, it's so much more like translatable when it's from paper to your like comprehension, whereas when it is animated, it's just less, it's more restrictive in a certain sense, because you're not gonna rewind like 10 seconds or like an episode, or when things happen in conjunction you can cut, but then as a viewer it's not the same, it's not translatable. Right?
I do have something I want to say about anime beginnings as well. And this is, again, just more like a personal gripe. But this is probably why I'm starting to depreciate my care and attention for shonen action series. Because of the fact that, and this comes down to why
does that have to do with credits, opening sequence?
No, not at all. What this is the fact that, like, this kind of ties back into like why I wanted to talk about why there's too many anime series that come out every season. With shonen action, attention span is important. You need to be able to get people to watch your stuff quickly to jump on the bandwagon and then like not deviate to other stuff, right?
We all have ADHD. Yep.
Exactly. So it's like,
No, for real, yeah.
so when it comes to producing the first episode of a shonen action, whether it be Jujutsu Kaisen or Chainsaw Man or a Demon Slayer or whatnot,
Sure.
the first episode is almost always the craziest, most hype shit. I mean, think about episode 1 of fucking Hell's
like,
Paradise.
That's all your Saguka.
The bunch just goes right there. Of course, it's not the same with Demon Slayer because they do actually have some consistent animation later on. But it's like you have one amazing opening, the greatest episode opening for this
Pacing.
season.
Yeah.
But then afterwards, like the next 7 episodes, fuck all happens. That's the trap I fell into when watching Tact Op Destiny.
Yes. And
Because that first episode was a banger, dude. And then afterwards, second episode was okay. And then it just got worse and worse. And then they give you that stupid ending of play the game. It's just like, oh, wow.
So the thing with Tact Op is that it's anime original.
Yeah.
So because of that, the onus is on the script writer to be able to control that pacing and that ebb and flow. That being said, plenty of shows, whether it's even live action or animated, has like the premiere episode be a banger.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, Oshinoko technically falls in that category.
It has to, though, because with a 90-minute theatrical release kind of thing, like, it kind of has to be a banger. And I get that. I excuse them from that. But
I also think that the premiere episode of Oshinoko was it was a good decision to do that.
I think the way they did it was like, this is genius script writing. This
It's
is
as good as it can get.
This was the only way they could do it, and they pulled it off. But like with shonen action, it's probably why I feel it's got a little stale. Not a little, very stale for me. Is that they all kind of followed the same
They blow
progression.
their load.
Yeah, it's just like at that point, you're just like, well, I'm in my refractory period now. I don't know how long it's going to be before I can get rock hard to watch all this shit again.
You got post-nut clarity.
Exactly. That's literally it. I just finished watching episode 1 and I realized, what am I doing? Why am I watching these kids like just all of a sudden like eat demon fingers and start running around?
I mean, the drop off for a lot of shows fall prey to that. That's why, for example, in anime, there's the 3-episode rule, not because you have to adhere to 3 episodes, but because generally 3 episodes contain either a mini arc within the Cour or it's like a good summation of hype / like downtime or a good sense, at least of the pacing or the rate of what is being adapted. Right?
And this is probably why like my appreciation for slice of life is growing, because the fact that they're not like they're not tied to having to just showcase everything in one go.
They don't want you to.
They don't want you because they want you to be there for the whole journey.
Bro, you gotta like
Yeah.
chill out, man.
Exactly. You don't have any
Gotta
of
ride
these
the
action
wave,
ebb and
man.
flows. It's literally just sit down, shut the fuck up, and watch this schoolgirl and schoolboy walk to class. And that's like an episode. It's like, cool. I'll watch the next episode. This was also cool. Wow, I actually really like this series. But with like Hell's Paradise, you watch that execution scene immediately, and you're just like, what are they gonna do next? Are they gonna chop off more heads? Is there gonna be more blood? Because at some point,
Stay tuned and find out.
yeah, but at that point, like, there's always a limit, right? There's always going to be diminishing returns to something. Like it's like the whole pizza analogy I like to go to. The first bite of your pizza, fucking amazing, because you were hungry. 10 out of 10. Second slice, I'm still hungry. It wasn't as good as the first one, but I'm gonna still eat 9 out of 10. Third piece, okay, it's getting kind of boring now. I'm getting a little bit full. This is like a 7 out of 10. And then the fourth slice, I'm just dropping it now. Like
Or you have to eat them all in a span of 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Like the first bite is going to be great, and then oh wow, I have to eat the whole thing in like I have a minute left. Shit.
And that's like, I feel like a problem that is inherent in shonen action. It is literally a victim of its own doing. Like, you have to get as many people to get hyped about your show, but then you got to think
Like
about
convince them, right?
Yeah, like you remember the first episode of Naruto?
No.
Exactly, because nothing happened. They slowly paced that shit up. It was actually a very slow burn. And yeah, because of the fact that it has like 700 episodes.
Wait, does the episode end with him like on the roof shouting to everyone that he'll be Hokage?
No, I think Oh, he does kind of say that, but like the
They
next
eat ramen.
the next episode was when that guy steals a scroll, and then Naruto comes back and
That's
gets it.
the second episode.
And then he learns how to do his Kagebunshi no Jutsu.
Yeah.
And that was the second
and
episode.
then the sensei,
but would
not
you,
Kakashi though.
yeah, I know which one.
the good
yeah,
guy
yeah.
sensei.
But like, would you say that was like, damn, this is the shit, man. This is what Naruto's all about. The Kagebunshi no Jutsu and all. No, like it's not the same as like watching fucking Tanjiro learn how to do breathing techniques and slicing demons in half and all that. You know?
I do think to a certain extent that whether it is due to the patience of the average person nowadays or just due to trends, I think back then when Naruto first premiered, everything was more of a slow burn, right? Monster is one of the best like manga series of all time and probably is one of like the best animes that you can say is like instant classic that you need to watch.
Yeah.
Monster is a show that if you do not watch it in its entirety now, especially like nowadays, it is the most boring shit and the most blue-balled because everything is firmly building and layered on top of each other. Then over time, you look down and you are essentially on the tippy top of like essentially Mount Everest, and everything is so intricately laid, so beautifully depicted and acted out that you're just like, this is fucking dope as fuck. 11 out of 10
because they keep the tension riding throughout, and whenever there's a spike in suspense or action, it's not like massive. It just has a little peak and then it goes back down, and but it goes back to the original level of tension and keeps riding throughout, and then you have like the big bad show up.
I just think a lot of people, like a lot of like more like 90s, early 2000s anime are just more slow and patient. Either that or as anime viewers, you are more patient.
Yeah,
but I mean. I don't know.
And then that's also why, like, I feel like with like shonen action, they have to unfortunately fall on the crutch of throwing comedy in there to be able to at least have something to enjoy.
That's why they call it comic relief character, right?
Right?
Yeah.
Like all the slapstick interactions between the characters in Jujutsu Kaisen and Hell's Paradise, you kind of need those because you can't, like, okay, if you just had action every single... this is not Kengan Ashura, right? This is not like a free-for-all battle like Melee. This is not fucking like what's the not the Valkyrie one?
Valkyrie one, what?
The gods versus the humans one. What's it called?
Oh.
Ragnarok.
Okay.
Ragnarok. Like it's not like that where like literally every episode is just like fist pumping, like I'm gonna fucking kill you. Like it's not like
and
that.
And even that one, the animation adaptation was iffy.
Dreadful.
I mean, maybe the newer one is like
it's got better scores for sure.
Yeah.
But like that's why like I think with the way that shonen action is done now, like I get it. You have to stand up above the rest by giving someone a reason to pick your manga, to pick your anime. And if your first chapter, your first episode is wow, amazing. Okay, I'm hooked.
It's also you have to keep up that pace at that point,
and
right?
then you could forgive the mangaka or the production company in terms of like, okay, there's like some done episodes, but you gave me episode 1 or like episode 7 was amazing, so I'm happy to just deal with like the training arc or like the real like menial like fucking like slapstick comedy that happens. I get that. But after a while, you just see it's a very repetitive beginning process and ending process. It's always major climax in episode 1. It's kind of chill. Introduce big bad. Oh, there's a big fight now. Then kind of chill. And then you end with a climax cliffhanger episode for episode 12. It's too formulaic, you know?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with the word formulaic. I think Japanese culture is very well known for being very rule-abiding, formulaic, and kind of, in many ways, if you stray from the crowd, it's like frowned upon to a certain extent. Then you get the most cookie cutter, formulaic action comedy shonen, where not only do you have to fit it within a really rigid structure of Cour, then you fit it within a rigid structure of the manga, and then you fit in within the manga the rigid structure of those tropes.
Like Fairy Tale, Seven Deadly Sins, fucking Black Clover, Naruto, and all that. They're all the same. The same ensemble cast, the same slapstick comedy, the same pervert harem gags, the same loud protagonists. And
I
all
would
that.
say the new age of shonen, though, is doing it better.
It's doing it better.
It's still formulaic,
that's how it was before, right?
Mm-hmm,
like, let's say for all intents and purposes, pre-Demon Slayer times, because Demon Slayer was the one that literally changed the shonen action landscape. It was that massive, right?
Sure. Yes, absolutely.
So like post Demon Slayer, now it's just like you're kind of seeing similarities. The trio are back, right? It's always going to be three main characters. One of them is going to be a little bit quirky. One's going to be the loud protagonist, and one of them's going to be a little bit brooding and whatnot. Maybe not so much.
And one of them has to be a girl.
Yeah. Or more effeminate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, okay. Yeah.
One of them is definitely going to be a kudere. You know? Like it's not that hard.
Kutun Dan.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's never going to be that hard to like create a trio of shonen action protagonists. Like you just have to make sure one of them has yellow hair. That's it, right? Naruto, yellow hair, right? Fucking Tanjiro and Zenitsu's yellow hair.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have yellow hair in Jujutsu Kaisen, but you do have like red, brown, and the black haired one, but he's also a coup. You know, he's
sure, yeah.
You know, he like Megumi is he's the Sasuke of Naruto and all that.
Yeah,
yeah. So it's like those archetypes. I think in the end, right?
Slightly stretching, but I know what you're saying.
But we've had like those, like we've talked about like tropes in anime, and like these are the things that will always stay the same. And I think that this is the new introduction of this particular anime trope, in which if you're doing a shonen action, you better have a banger opening and a banger ending. You gotta fuck all in the middle, but you know, that's what people usually do. It's like people love to talk about how an anime starts and how an anime ends. Some episodes will be a little more memorable in the middle, but more often than not, you want to have a strong start and a strong finish.
Generally speaking, with all like
shonen action specifically, I mean.
Yeah, I would say more so for sure, but I think even anime or live action, your premiere episode and your ending finale, and I guess for some split Cours, or if you have a double Cour, your mid-season finale or mid-season finale, I guess is the term, is everyone cares about the bread rather than the stuff,
the filling,
of the filling, right? And we call it filling or fillers for a reason. But I think nowadays, though, unfortunately, that's just the name of the game. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, it's also like slightly unnerving, because on one hand, you have to appeal to your demographic, however large or however small, and or grab the attention of others. Then once they're on the hook, as long as you could keep them on the hook, on the line, you have to end on a good note. But besides that, who gives a shit about the middle? But the thing is that, like, I don't know. I think pacing and ebb and flow is a very interesting discussion, but it's such a hard one to kind of tackle within the span of time.
Yeah, and I think, well, because it falls victim to just consumer practice.
Production, too.
Yeah, the production team knows they have to make something that will be able to grab the attention of people, and consumers are going to gravitate to something that will grab their attention. It's chicken or egg. That's literally it, right? Like, who's going to make the right opening, and who's going to be watching the right opening? Which one is going to come first, right? Do the consumers go to something because they know it's a good opening, but how would they know that if the producers didn't actually make them good in the first place? It's just that vicious cycle of, we know this is what the consumers want, and the consumers know this is what the producers have to do to get our attention.
And I think also, yes, Will and I and a lot of people are very sympathetic, understandable of constraints or the deadlines or the issues that come within, anime and manga production. But it also, along the same lines as once you make it, once you release it, produce it, right? It's fair game for us to critique. It's fair game for us to not consume it or continue to consume it, right? It's our rights as consumers. So it is like this really weird seesaw balance that will probably never be addressed in a way that for it to pan out for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, because that's just our viewing habits now, right? Like,
Yeah, we're all fixed in that habit now.
I don't really watch shonen action anymore, but I can guarantee that if you are you are a shonen action fan, you very much judge the series on its first episode. Because if it doesn't grab your attention at the start, you're not going to reach the finish line.
I think nowadays not everyone adheres to something like the 3-episode rule.
It could be much shorter than that. Yeah,
I mean, it is definitely like a thing that people throw around, and I think people that, for us that grew up with the medium for a long period of time, I think in terms of proportion, we are more like fixated on the 3-episode rule or some form of that, rather than I think a lot of more younger audiences will be like, you didn't get my attention day one, I'm out. Yeah. End of story. So then they have to put all the stuff there, and then maybe they're more tolerable of the filler once they're on the hook, and then maybe we're not, because we're like, we're not going to put up with this shit. But then it becomes a balance there too of like, well, who do we care more about in terms of the demographic and priorities, right? I don't know. Like, it's such a hard question to balance for a lot of creators and production people, right?
Yeah, because viewing habits and our tastes in anime are, believe it or not objective, right? Everybody has a different reason or purpose for watching anime or reading manga in the first place. So that's why it's always that weird, like you said, that weird seesaw, that balancing act of, do we just give the consumers what they want right from the get-go, or do we want to make them work for it and like maybe have something in the middle? Like an example that I kind of have, which is not necessarily the best example, but like something that I felt was like, if you're gonna do something, do it consistently. Your boy Kang Ming, after episode 1 where they do the introductions of the characters and there's a dance scene with some singing and all that, what did they do in episode 2? They do it again. They do another dance scene, another singing episode, and then the third one, they do another dance, another sing. Maybe this time, instead of it being singing with a girl group, it's a rap. It's a rap battle and whatnot. And then there's always, like every episode of your boy Kang Ming has a consistent theme running through. You know there's going to be a musical performance. You know there's going to be a tactical analysis breakdown from your boy Kang Ming on how he pulled that off and shit. You don't really see that with... I mean, it's not fair to say that like shonen action should follow that kind of formula, but it's the drop off of the action that makes it so that like, is it really that important to get everyone in at the door straight away, or could you build towards people actually starting to crowd around your property?
I have a counter example to what you just said. It may be the exception to the rule, but I think it's a good example. Shogugeki no Soma. Especially in the earlier, like first, even I would say up to season like 3 or so, which they slowly like wavered. But if you
all the non-Japanese fans, we're talking about Food Wars.
Sorry. So season 1, especially like let's say the first like 6 episodes, right? Half cur,
honey, peanut butter, octopus, or was it squid? It was squid. Yeah.
It was a squid or octopus.
It was squid, but that's how they started, and then that's when you like. They've set the tone. We know what we're expecting from watching Food Wars.
But I think Food Wars is extremely well structured in that there's always going to be that ecchi, weird food scene.
Yeah.
There's always going to be a food dish that is introduced, especially in the first couple. There's literally one dish that is introduced, like we're going to spoil the first episode of season 1 of maybe like the first couple. I mean, do we want to do that?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Sure. The first episode is the mutton, right? When they were at the diner. The second episode, I think, was when Erina with the fried rice and the fat jello gel. I forgot what the third episode dish was, but there was always at least bare minimum a conscious like food dish that is in focus.
Oh, and you bet your ass there's always going to be some sexual tension between Erina and Soma.
Oh yeah, he goes to the dorm
Yeah.
and then makes the patty.
Is that when like the dorm
granny.
master walks in
Yep.
completely naked?
I don't know. No, not
that episode.
Not that guy. It was at night.
Yeah, I remember the granny because it's like, what food you got? Well, you're at a cooking school.
Oh, this is good enough. Oh, there's all scraps, right?
Yeah, this is a cooking school. Like, if you want to eat, you got to make your own food, dude. Okay, all right, cool.
But it was like those mini episodes has the structure of like a beginning, middle, end Cour, right? I think a lot of script writers, like Western script writers at least, because I have at least more insight of that, is they put a lot of like effort into understanding, you know, that's why in like Western media there's like the dark second act and then the climax and then the drop off and all these terms. I'm not saying
or there's like other series where it's like there's definitely a main overriding plot, but they'll always introduce subplots.
right.
Right?
Or it could be like, oh, this monster of the week, but then they add in an overarching thing that is like, we give you a little bit of that overarching story of the season, like bits and pieces.
Yeah.
But then we have the monster of the week that is very formulaic, but still nonetheless entertaining. I am not saying that script writers or anime adaptations who are focused on script writing are like any lesser. But I think because of the structure, the rigid structure that the medium forces them to be in, and or the fans expect it to be in, that regardless of what you're adapting, regardless of how you want to adapt it, you are already from the beginning handicapped in a certain way.
Yeah. I think like that's generally like when it comes to talking about like the beginnings and endings of anime series, curves, seasons, or whatnot. It's you just know what you need to do, and unfortunately, sometimes it does mean that it becomes a bit like boring and dry. But that this is just coming from my perspective because you know damn well with series like Hell's Paradise and Jujutsu Kaisen and whatnot, even if they follow the same episodic format in terms of how they start and how they end the series, how they end the season, people are still gonna love that shit. There's a reason why we have fucking 10 movies for Fast and Furious, right? There's a reason why we have 4 movies for The Expendables and all that. Like people know what they like and they will go back to it even if it's the same damn thing.
I mean, would you feel like would you feel the following scenario either awkward, unnatural, or you just be like, what the fuck? Okay, I'm going to give it to you. So we know that double episode lengths can be a normal thing within anime, right?
It's becoming more and more normal now, yeah.
Now, imagine a scenario where there are double episode lengths spliced somewhat randomly inside a Cour. How would you feel about that? So I'm not just talking, for example, the premiere episode and the finale, for example, or each episode being 50 minutes. Let's say all of a sudden the premiere episode is 90 minutes. Sure, if you have enough or it's good enough or whatever. Then episode 2, normal broadcast. Then normal 3 is 20 minutes, normal broadcast. And all of a sudden, episode 4 is double Cour. Double length. Then all of a sudden, episode 5 is double length. Then all of a sudden, episode 6, like it's uneven in that sense.
It'd be weird, but again, it would have to come under like what context? Like, why is it that in the middle there is a double Cour? Like, for example, like this is a live action example, but Narcos. There's like certain episodes in the beginning or end that are like 30, 40 minutes long, and then there's some episodes in the middle that are like 50 minutes, even an hour long. And you're wondering, well, I mean, is it noticeable? No, because they don't really follow a strict format of like anime where it has to be like 25 minutes
and is not broadcasted, right?
Yeah.
So then they're not restricted in that sense. But when you don't have any of those restrictions and you still have this uneven length, off the rip, would you think it's weird?
It would be weird for sure. And I think it's also weird from like a business perspective because like anytime a studio or like a business announces catch tonight's episode because it's going to be the finale and it's going to be a double episode. Oh, everybody's watching that shit. But if you did it in the middle for no reason, whether you choose to announce it or not, I feel like it kind of is. This is going back on my whole like why are things so formulaic and stuff. I guess there has to be some consistency, some formula as to why there is a middle hump of double episodes or extended length episodes.
I mean, people always say variety is the spice of life, but if there is no rules or structure and it's just pure madness and chaos, no one is going to like that, despite you saying so, I think.
It is definitely an important part of production where you figure out how you start a series and how you end a series. Not even just series, just like a Cour specifically, right? Like it's if we knew how to do it, we'd be writing anime too, but we don't, right? So it's not really our place to tell directors and producers how they should go about producing their anime.
But I will tell you if I like it or not, right? Well, let's take also Mugen Train then. When it was adapted into the TV series, right? I think it was in print, like on paper, a very good move, especially when it is mandatory because you need to know about those things.
Yep.
It's not like a spin-off movie or a finale movie. This is literally spliced in the middle. You have to watch Mugen Train or else you will be completely lost in Entertainment District arc, right?
Yeah, and I think that in a way it's almost like sunk costs. It's like, yeah, okay, they can get more
And
money.
double dip, right?
They can make more money in terms of like licensing and all, but it's like it really does not like generate that much revenue for the company to have both a movie version and then 6 months later release the TV version.
But it also could be streaming too, right?
Like you said, it's needed for consistency amongst fans. If they did not watch Mugen Train the movie and you told them to go straight into the Entertainment District arc, what the fuck's going on? Right? You need to have that crossover. So for them, it was a necessary cost. It was a necessary act to be able to make sure that if you didn't watch the movie, hey, you still have a chance to at least be caught up. But then there's also the we had that discussion of since the way the movie played out this way, what would it be like to have it broken up into 6 different parts?
And it sucked.
Yeah.
Granted, I did not sit down and watch all 6 episodes. I was kind of because I watched the movie.
Yeah.
And
That's
Sorry,
don't remind me.
My bad. And I was just like working on stuff and then watching it here and there. The beats are technically the same, but because you spliced it, it's so jarring that when the movie is structured in a very like deliberate format, then you splice it up. Yes, you can do that and then insert the OP and ED, but it's so weird. It doesn't make sense from like a pacing or experience perspective.
Like you said, it was necessary, but it was just shit still for like people who actually enjoyed watching Demon Slayer. Like, of course, the optimal experience would be to watch season 1, watch the movie, watch Entertainment District arc, and so on and so forth.
Do you know a lot of people who watch Oshi no Ko?
No, actually. Not personally, no.
Okay. I don't know that many more, but a consistent thing that I've heard from a lot of people was the going over the hump of watching 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And I worry about that with Fieren. Because how are you going to stomach 2 hours? It could be the best 2 hours,
but it's also like if you haven't read the manga, it's a hard sell, right?
And that being episode 1 of maybe a Cour or double, right?
Yeah.
Like how in the world are you going to like? We could look back on the premiere of Fieren and being like that was the best move, just like Oshi no Ko, right?
Yeah.
And I agree that the way it was done, the first episode of Oshi no Ko was almost the perfect way to fit in all that content with that production and the hook. But 2 hours?
Yeah, I mean, like you and I both read the manga. At least for me, I read volume 1, right? You read more, but it's like I think you and I are cautiously optimistic.
We could eat our words, but like, fuck. It's like, and then later on, it's like, guys, guess what? We're doing a whole curve anime, and each one is 3 hours long.
That's the thing I actually do want to bring up, right? Like, do you now that we've seen it with Oshinoko and now soon to be with Frieren, do you feel that like feature length first episodes are going to become like a more normal thing?
I don't. I mean,
I'd hope not.
so
Because then it
this
just
is
waters down the point of having like great openings too. It's like if every single one of them did that, then one, these animators are going to be working to death. Like I don't want them to do that much work. But two, it's like if everyone's doing it, then there's nothing special about doing a feature length opening anymore.
So this is one thing that I do want to talk about as well. So I'm glad that we're touching upon it. My opinion is it might sound like an awesome thing, but I think almost in many respects it's the most it's a very selfish thing, and I'll explain why. I think when you create I would say double length openings are exempt, as in they're understandable.
Yeah.
I would say
Fair, yeah.
I would say
If it's like 50 minutes, like we've seen that before.
yeah, like an hour premiere. I would say that's way more commonplace, like for a long time, right?
But an hour and a half,
Or
2 hours,
because 90 minutes is 6 episodes, I think, roughly.
Yeah.
And then 2 hours is obviously like 8.
You're almost at a cur at that point. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would argue that it is extremely selfish thing because it creates the expectations of what people that are invested in the property will think. Because they might, similar to what you would say, you blow your load, then all of a sudden the rest of the cur is like not that great. Whether it is production, visuals, or anything, because you poured all of that to make a big bang.
And I would say this as well. As much as I do love Oshinoko, okay, love's a strong word. As much as I do really like Oshinoko, it definitely felt weird after watching 90 minutes for the first episode to go back to watching regular curs. Regular episode length. It was just like sat through 90 minutes to watch this, and it was amazing. But now we're just watching it. It was like watching Mugen Train and then watching the TV show right afterwards.
Yeah, it's disorienting for sure, right? Or at least it feels not necessarily bad, but it feels awkward, like unnatural, because we're just not exposed to that often, right?
Yeah.
I get that. So I think it would create bad expectations for the the consumer, right? Then it creates, as you alluded to, bad expectations for other people in the industry.
Yeah.
Because then it'll be like, oh, I can do it for 90 minutes. Oh, I can do it for 2 hours. I can do it for 3 hours. Oh, this is a 4-hour special, episode 0 before the season starts, motherfuckers. And I'm just like, guys, stop it, okay?
Soon just going to be like, our first episode is a 3-hour choose-your-own adventure visual novel.
Oh, do you like a cur of anime? We put a cur of anime in your cur of anime. Yeah. I mean, in many ways, Attack on Titan is essentially, at least the naming convention alludes to that, right? Because within final season, there are multiple parts. Okay, I get that. Right. That makes sense. And then each of those parts have each individual parts. That's exhibit level of naming convention. And in many ways is like the most perplexing thing ever, right?
Yeah, it's going to be like the final season, part 3, part 2, the sequel, the final part. Like, come on, just say this is going to be a long ass season, and just cut the bullshit.
Right.
Just say Cur 1, Cur 2, Cur 3 of the final. Like, I get that they need to have these naming conventions for business and for distribution purposes, but it gets so egregious at this point, right? Like, you can't even just decide on how you're going to name your seasons because you don't know how long it's going to take for you to finish it. Like, it's just sad. I don't like it.
So then, it's, in my opinion, for the long term, it is bad for the consumer. It is bad for the creators in terms of your peers. Then it's also technically bad for the creators because they have to fucking rush essentially a double cur or whatever, or like 90 minutes of content in one go. It is, unless if you have and you pace like your production cycle well enough, which I mean, you can, but statistically speaking, and we anecdotally and news wise, that hasn't happened forever. You're gonna overwork and kill your own staff members.
Yeah, you have to make it make sense. Like Oshinoko, it made sense and they made it work. Frieren, it makes sense why they're doing a 2-hour premiere. Would it work? That's to be seen, right?
Mm-hmm.
But but you have to commend it at least with us having insider knowledge and all that. There's a reason why they're doing a 2-hour premiere.
Yep. And then the non-believers, so to speak, or people without that know-how, a lot of them, and for me, anecdotally, I can tell you, are turned off by that 90 minutes. They're like, I don't want to sit and watch something that
Watch a movie,
Yeah, like I'll just watch a movie at that point, right? Why do I need to watch a movie within my curve of anime that I am used to? Which, to be fair, I think we are all conditioned because of this rigid structure of a curve beginning and ending, this format. A double episode length is widely acceptable for a lot of people. But beyond that, unless if it's like a finale or even a finale movie, it's extremely like unorthodox.
And it's not the same as watching a season of anime and then having to watch a movie afterwards.
Because you can choose it.
Because that's an entirely different thing. We're talking about like if you're watching a season of anime and one of those episodes is 2 hours long. That's when it's just like, okay, what are we doing, guys?
Yeah. And the inverse is true too with Mugen Train. When you split a movie into 6 episodes, it's jarring because it's originally intended to be a movie, and therefore within it there is the way that things are structured or paced, right? So
what about when TV series become movies? Like with
like
Bocchi
compilation?
like with Bocchi the Rock, because the movie is essentially a theatrical version of season 1.
So a lot of compilation films do exist.
Yeah. So
and
what are your thoughts on that then? It's an opposite Mugen Train, where Mugen Train was movie to TV,
which is rarer.
Yeah.
Usually it's the other way around. Compilation movies are way, way, way more common.
Yeah.
I think it's a smart thing. It's like the more healthier thing and the smarter thing because, A, you have more to start and then you cut rather than figuring out how to like
splice everything and make
Exactly.
it make sense, right?
You're making a Frankenstein at that point. Yeah. Whereas here, you are
you have all the ingredients laid out for you.
And you're picking and choosing. You're being more conscious of it. And also, you don't necessarily just have to work with those ingredients. You could go to the market because you can add in extra scenes to entice...
throw in an Easter egg and all that.
Because you can entice people who have watched the anime season to be like, yo, check out the compilation film because there is extra scenes, or this part wasn't in the series because we couldn't adapt it all, but guess what, for the compilation we'll put it in there. Oh, you like Fruits Basket, huh? Yeah. Guess what, Prelude is happening. Oh shit. And guess what, before that we will put out the compilation films. So if you really want to sit down and watch all Lord of the Rings for 24 fucking hours, hell yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So that's why I think the inverse is way healthier for everyone, especially because it's already been made to a certain extent.
It just makes sense. Yeah, the fact that you already have everything laid out, you might as well make a compilation movie out of it, as opposed to the other way around where it's like, we have the movie, but we're not sure if everybody's watched it, and we have season 3 coming out, so, Entertainment District are coming out. Let's just throw out a TV series.
Now, as an aside, personally, I hate compilation films because it makes no sense to me.
Especially after already watching the main series, right?
People who would want to watch the compilation film would probably just watch the anime series proper, or they would treat it like how I treat it, which is like a really, really long recap episode.
Yeah, in that sense, it makes more sense to actually have a compilation movie for an existing season as opposed to make a movie and then break it into a TV series.
Now, Evangelion Rework is different.
Yeah.
Because it's like...
Well, that's
it's
a
like
whole
a
different
remake
thing.
of a series, so then it's like its own thing, right? And the only instance, though, I would do compilation films... like I would sit and watch compilation films, is we do a marathon or we're strapped for time for a podcast.
And we watch it at 2 times speed.
I'll never watch it 2 times. Or I watch the finale movie, but I don't remember what happened in previous seasons, so I watched a compilation film before I watched the movie. Those are the only reasons why I would ever watch compilation films.
Yeah. I think that pretty much wraps up what our thoughts are, what your thoughts are. Our runtime is almost as long as an Oshinoko episode.
Is it?
Well, our 14, we're only the 15 minutes away. We're not attempting to be longer than an Oshinoko episode. We've done that too many times already.
What?
Yeah, no, that's yeah.
I'm just gonna say what for like another 14 minutes. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so before I get into show notes, Will, is there any sort of parting thoughts you want to say? Any like wrap up thoughts about beginning an anime, ending an anime, or beginning, ending?
This is
period?
more just like me just saying, like, I hope people listening to this don't think that I absolutely dog on like shonen action series. I know I use it as an example of like why there are certain like really bad openings or endings to anime.
I mean, I'll just say it for both of us. Don't forget, listeners, if you are of a certain age, like we are, you grew up loving anime because of shonen action. And also, modern shonens like Jujutsu Kaisen and whatnot and Demon Slayer are fan-fucking-tastic. However, that doesn't mean the things that we love the most don't be understood, or we understand those the most, and we know, therefore...
And after a while, it's like, you know, I've had a taste of shonen action for so long. Nah, I want some slice of life instead.
We shit on isekais, but every once in a while, mid isekais like are okay as like a, you know, like a mid break, right? Or you can do something about it to surprise me.
Yeah, I guess that's my final word that I wanted to put out there.
I think beginning an anime and ending an anime has less rules and structure around that now. But I think at the same time, it's a double-edged sword because anime production, anime scheduling, episode counts are so rigid and ironclad rule that if we do anything to deviate from that, almost everyone is like caught off guard. And it becomes an extremely hard balancing act for the adaptation process, production process, or the user even. And we just has to put more thought and consideration when you begin and end however long or however short it is.
Yeah. So we spent the last hour and 20 minutes just talking about anime beginnings and endings. Let's see if Jason can pull off the ending for Bits and Pieces episode ? Because we have no idea when this is going to release.
I know what this episode number is. Do you know?
22?
Yeah, boy. And the next episode should be, because it depends, but right now in the pipeline is our season 6 finale. So stay tuned for that. We're about to end this episode and start that at some point. I don't know. We're not going to start it today. But you can always reach us through our Gmail email. Wow, I fucked that up from the get-go. Fuck.
Wow.
gapalette@gmail.com. That's GAPALETTE, all lowercase, all one word. Elon Musk is going to castrate me if I don't say you can use our handle @PaletteGood on X, formerly Twitter, using the handle @PaletteGood. That's capital P and capital G, all one word. And you don't need 2 episode lengths to tell me how wrong Will and I are. But if you really want to, you can talk to us on our Discord server using the invite link in the show description. You can tell us our web of lies are intricate, but you can also go to our website, www.goodanimepalette.com, all lowercase, all one word. I will be firm about our music credits for this episode, which is our intro music is... What is it, Jason?
Maybe You'll Meet Again by Bagel. Outro Like the Ocean by The Big Letdown.
Yep, thank you. It's funny because I was staring at the script in front of me and I still fucked up. I don't understand. Like, look at this. Look at this.
See, this is why opening and ending anime series is tough. But as we always say, all the music that we've been using for our episodes have been provided by Epidemic Sounds. You can always use them on a trial basis.
First of all, you could support the music artists that we feature by listening to them on Spotify, Apple Music, or various music listening platforms. But as Will said, our royalty-free music was provided by Epidemic Sound. If you're interested, you can always sign up using the referral link in our show description, but terms and conditions apply.
I think we're good, right? No more like final words.
Stay tuned for the episode after this, where we spirit bomb for 3 episodes for the final season, part 3, Alpha EX, double thingy-majig, suplex landing, turbo ultra, killer instinct, gear, exurd, in birth, under night. I'm just like naming all these acronyms of fighting games that I know.
The finale.
The finale, part 4, T9.